Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I rise to oppose the government business program, as already stated by the Manager of Opposition Business, the member for Brighton. And the reason we are opposed is, as the member for Brighton said, we would have liked the opportunity to be able to have consideration in detail on these bills that we will be debating on the business program this week. Now, as the member for Yan Yean has just said, there are many questions that could be asked on many of these bills, and for very good reason. So I'm not sure why we would be opposed in being able to actually question the government and actually get clarification. One of the clarifications I was seeking was, why on the Education and Training Reform Amendment, Early Childhood and Employment Powers, why is it that we have to legislate to pay childcare educators, administrators and cooks? I didn't realise that was part of legislation for nurses or ambulance officers, and I want to understand why that is in this particular bill when we have the appropriation bill that I thought covered that. So I'd love some clarity on that. But there are no opportunities under this government. For the last 3 terms, we've had one opportunity each term. So once in 4 years do we get the right to be able to get into consideration in detail of the very bills that will change the laws and affect our communities and possibly result in unintended consequences. So the ability to seek consideration in detail, I find extraordinary that the member for Yan Yean says it's unnecessary. That tells me that this is a government who thinks they already know everything and don't have to be scrutinised or have any of the bills that they put forward questioned in any detail, because clearly they believe they've got it all right. And we've seen many examples over those 3 terms where we only had one opportunity each term to put those questions forward in detail, clause by clause. We've seen many mistakes made by this government where we had to come back and fix those problems, and we saw that as one of the things that we've put into the parliament this week by the member for Malvern, who's put forward his private members bill to make sure we strengthen the bail laws, and rather than letting somebody out who has, when they've committed an indictable offence, actually being allowed out on bail and not having a tougher rule to have to answer to. But we're taking into consideration making sure our community is safer with this amendment to the bail law and that private members bill. But unfortunately the government won't even let it be debated. Now, what could possibly be wrong with debating such an important subject and making sure we get that right? But unfortunately under this government we don't see that ability. We see it's the government under the Allan regime is as dictatorial perhaps as it was under the previous Premier of Daniel Andrews, and you'd expect that given the training that went on, and we saw, the inability for anyone to question their way forward. It's their way or the highway. But we do have several important bills, the first one being the climate change legislation, amendment for renewable energy and storage targets. And I think that there wouldn't be a person here that doesn't agree we should leave the environment in a better way than we find it, and we should be transitioning in a responsible way that gets energy affordable and reliable and dependable. And under this government we're not seeing that. We're seeing a lot of pretend. Just see what happened last week with the lack of maintenance that's taken place and resulted in our the towers, our transmission towers, buckling and just turning into a mush of metal. And I heard from the opposition on the other side during that discussion by my colleague for the member for Morwell that trees had fallen on them. Well, I don't think trees will fall on transmission lines and buckle them like we saw. It's purely because of lack of maintenance. And that's right. Thank you, the member for Brighton, reminding me of the irresponsible nature of the way this government is handling the Hastings situation, where there is a Ramsar environmental protection in place, World Heritage listed, and here we have a government bowling through destroying the environment. I don't think I can trust that they'll do any better than that in Portland, where we've got a whale migration pathway. I'm very concerned about the irresponsible process that they'll undertake to pretend that everything's fine when it probably won't be, and we won't be able to trust that process given the experience they've given us in Hastings.